yarny friends, I'm Sara Sach, and welcome back to my crochet channel. Today's video I'm going to show you how to stitch up our Lots of Love scarf and cowl. We decided to call it the Lots of Love because the way we stitch our shell stitches makes it look like lots of hearts. Isn't that pretty? I'm also going to show you 3 different ways that you can use this scarf or cowl. As a regular scarf, as a regular cowl, and as an infinity cowl. And it all depends on how you finish up the scarf. And I'll show you those at the end of the video. Now you can find this free crochet pattern on my blog. And as always, that link will be down in the notes underneath this video. Now the scarf itself measures about 10 inches across. And the length that I have made mine is 36 inches long. But you can make it as long as you want or as short as you want by determining how many rows that you want to make. And again, you can find all the repeats and multiples, stitch counts, all of that information on that blog that's in that description box. To make my Lots of Love scarf and cowl, I used my leftover yarns from previous projects that were made from the Mandala, however you want to say that, ombre yarns. These are medium weight number 4 yarns. And you can see they have changing colors in them. And this is the ombre yarns. And this is a mixture of different ones that I had left over from previous projects. But you can use any medium weight number 4 yarns for this project. I think some of these ombres that are like all in pinks or all in purples would be beautiful for this. You could do it in a solid color, variegated, whatever yarn that you have on hand. To make the scarf the length and the width that I made mine, you're going to need approximately 7 ounces of yarn. One of these has 5.3 ounces, so you're going to need about 1.5 if you're going to use this particular yarn. But again, any medium weight number 4 yarn will work for this project. We're going to be stitching today with our eye hook, which is a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. You'll need a needle just for weaving in ends, and you'll need a pair of scissors. To begin, we're going to start with our slip knot, and we're going to chain 36 chains. And I do recommend that you chain these just a little bit loose so the end of your scarf isn't puckered. So we're going to chain 36 chains. I have chained my 36 chains. I'm going to begin by stitching a single crochet in the second chain from the hook. Now we're going to stitch 1 single crochet in each of those chains, working all the way across our row. And this is just a foundation to work our stitches into. So 1 single crochet in each of the chains across, and again we began in the second chain from the hook. I began in the second chain from the hook, and I stitched 1 single crochet in each of my chains across. So I have 35 single crochets. I'm going to chain 3 and turn my work. Now, the chain 3 counts as 1 double crochet, and I'm going to stitch a double crochet in the next 2 stitches. 1 and 2. Now I'm going to chain 4. I'm going to skip the next 4 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then in the next, I'm going to stitch a shell stitch. And our shell stitch for this project is 2 double crochets, chain 1, and 2 more double crochets in that same stitch. 1 and 2. And then we'll repeat this 4 more times. 1, 2, 3, 4, chain 4, skip 4, and shell stitch in the next. And again, our shell stitch is 2 double crochets, chain 1, and 2 double crochets in the same stitch. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Shell stitch in the next. Now we're going to repeat this 2 more times so that we have 5 shell stitches. I repeated that 2 more times. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shell stitches. I'm going to chain 4. I'm going to skip the next 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that leaves me 3 single crochets on the end. And I'm going to double crochet in those last 3 single crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Go ahead and chain 3. You will notice that it looks a little bit loopy in here. Don't worry, this is all going to stretch out and look beautiful. All right, so for row 2, we began with our chain 3 that counted as a double crochet. So we have 3 double crochets, chain 4, skip 4, shell stitch 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's our last chain 4, and then 1 double crochet in the last 3 stitches and chain 3. And that's the way that row 2 should look. Now we're all set up to stitch our rows. Okay, so we've done our chain 3. We're going to turn. Again, our chain 3 counts as 1 double crochet, and we'll double crochet in the next 2. 1 and 2. Chain 4. And now we're going to stitch our shell stitch in the chain 1 space of the shell stitch. So we're still stitching a shell stitch, 2 double crochets. There we go. Chain 1 and 2 double crochets in that chain 1 space of our shell stitch. And see how that looks like a little heart? Chain 4 and repeat across. Shell stitch in the chain 1 space of the shell stitch. And our shell stitch is the same. 2 double crochets, chain 1 and 2 double crochets, and chain 4. And we'll just repeat this across. Shell stitch in the chain 1 space of the next shell stitch, and chain 4. And repeat. I repeated that across. We still have 5 shell stitches with our chain 4s in between. Here's my last chain 4, and now I'm just going to stitch a double crochet in those last 3 double crochet stitches. and chain 3. And this is the way row 3 should look. You have 3 double crochets at the beginning, chain 4, we have 5 shell stitches with our chain 4s in between, and then we end with our chain 4 and 3 double crochets. See, I told you it was super easy. We've chained 3, we're going to turn our work. We're going to double crochet in those next 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 4, shell stitch in the chain 1 space of the shell stitch, and again our shell stitch is 2 double crochets, chain 1 and 2 double crochets. Chain 4 and repeat. I love a pattern that is simple and beautiful at the same time, and that's what I think of this pattern. It makes a nice lacy scarf or cowl, and it's beautiful to look at. All right, so what we're going to do is just repeat across, chain 4, shell stitch in the chain 1 space of the shell stitch, and repeat across. I repeated that across, shell stitch in the chain 1 space of the shell stitch with chain 4s in between, and again I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shell stitches. I have my 3 double crochets at the beginning, we chained 4, and again we're going to end with 3 double crochets. There we go. And chain 3. Isn't that beautiful? You can see the hearts popping out, the laciness of it in between with those chain 4s, and it's just a beautiful pattern that drapes beautifully. All right, let's do one more row so that you understand how the rows work and the stitches. Chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, so we're going to double crochet in the next 2 stitches. 1, there we go, 2, now we're going to chain 4, shell stitch in the chain 1 space of the shell stitch, 1, 2 double crochets, chain 1 and 2 double crochets. One, 2, 3, 4 chains, and again shell stitch in the chain 1 space of the next shell stitch. And so what we're doing on row 5 is repeating what we've already done on row 4. 3 double crochets because our chain 3 counted as a double crochet. We stitched 2 more. Chain 4, shell stitch in the chain 1 space of the shell stitch, and repeat all the way across. And then again, chain 4 and 1 double crochet in those last 3 double crochets. I completed row 5. I have my 5 shell stitches with my chain 4s in between. We have 3 double crochets at the beginning and 3 double crochets at the end of our row. And this is what you're going to do for the remainder of your rows. It's just a simple 1 row repeat. And if you want to make your scarf or cowl as long as mine is, which is 36 inches approximately, of course, you're going to need to continue to repeat row 5 for 65 more rows. You can do less rows, you can do more rows, depending on how long you want your cowl or scarf to be. And again, measure as you go, use your tape measure, and make it the length that you want. But for the pattern that I have written, you're going to need to continue to repeat row 5 for 65 more rows. So here is my Lots of Love scarf and cowl. You can see it's nice and long. And again, it's up to you how many rows you repeat, how long you want your scarf or cowl to be. All right. And here's my last row. And now I'm going to show you how to add a trim to it and then how to make it into some of the different types of scarves and cowls. Now we want the end of our scarf or cowl to have a solid row of single crochets. So after you've stitched your last row, we're just going to chain 1 and turn our work. All right, now we're going to single crochet in these first 3 double crochets. Now we're going to single crochet in these 4 chains. You can do around the chain or in the chain itself. I like to go around it. Now we're going to move to that first chain 1 space of our shell and stitch a single crochet in that shell. Then we'll go to the next set of chain 4s and single crochet 4 single crochets. Single crochet in the chain 1 space of the shell. Then to the next. Chain 4 and stitch 4 single crochets. And like I said, you can stitch your 4 single crochets into the chain if you want to. I just prefer to go around it. I just like the way it looks better. Alright, so we're going to continue to repeat this across, stitching a single crochet in the chain 1 space of the shell, and then 4 single crochets in the 4 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll repeat this across this row. And this is giving us a nice even row of single crochets for the end of our scarf or cowl. Once you've repeated that all the way across, here's our last 4 single crochets, and then we'll single crochet in those 3 double crochets. There we go. Now, if you're just going to wear this as a regular scarf, then you can tie off and weave in your ends, which is a fun way to wear this. It makes a really nice, lacy, lightweight scarf. But I want to show you 2 other things you can do. It does make a really nice, beautiful scarf. But I'm always losing my scarves, and because I take them off and I leave them places. So I like to have a long cowl. So if you want to make a really long cowl, you can do this as long as you want, or if you want a short cowl, make it shorter. And then we'll put the 2 ends together and we'll stitch them together. And that will get you a nice long cowl. But if you want to have one that has the infinity or Mobius, which is a twist, you can take your cowl and just twist it. And then put the 2 ends together, and that will give you a twist in your cowl. All right, so here it is straight, and then I just take it and turn this over. And then I'll put the 2 ends together, and that will make it have a twist or a Mobius style cowl, because you'll have that twist in there, and it's a lot of fun. All right, either way, you're going to have to put your 2 ends together. So whether you want your cowl to be straight or twisted, I like them twisted myself, you're going to have to stitch those two ends together. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and chain one because we've done our row of single crochets, and I'm going to turn everything. I'm going to line everything up, and this is another place where it was important that you didn't make that beginning chain too tight, or you would have a little trouble getting everything to match up, because this is supposed to be sort of loose and lacy. All right, I'm going to move the end of this so that you can see what I'm doing, and then bring my camera in just a little bit closer. Stitching the ends together is really, really easy. Like I said, you're just going to line everything up. We're going to go through the first stitch on this side and the first stitch on this side, and we're just going to stitch a slip stitch. And a slip stitch is you go in, pull up that loop, and then pull that loop through the loop that's already on your hook. And we're just going to stitch this across, and this is going to become the inside of our cowl where that seam is. So basically what we are doing is slip stitching the two ends of our scarf together. And the truth is, if there's any scarf out there that you super love, and it's just a stitched scarf, it doesn't have, pockets or something like that, you can turn any scarf pattern into a cowl pattern by stitching the two ends together. This one I prefer using a slip stitch, but sometimes I might use a single crochet. It just depends on the pattern itself. All right? So I'm just going to continue stitching across, stitching the two ends of my cowl together with slip stitches. I have slip stitched the two sides or the two ends of my cowl together, and I'm going to cut my yarn, tie that off, and then I'll just grab my needle, if it doesn't fly off, that is. There we go, and weave this in. And make sure you weave that in securely. You don't want the end of your scarf coming undone. Remember, when weaving in, go through stitches and fibers for a nice secure end. All right, and now my Mobius or Infinity cowl is ready for me to wear it because I stitched it up with the twist. Now this is the inside, so make sure you flip that out so that your seam doesn't show. This is one of my favorite patterns that I have ever written because it is so versatile. You can make it as a long scarf, a short scarf. You can put a twist in it and stitch it and make it a Mobius or Infinity scarf, or you can just stitch the end, keep it straight, and make it a regular cowl. And the truth is, like I was saying, is you can turn any basic scarf into a cowl or a Mobius or Infinity scarf. And Mobius and Infinity is just a twist. And I love that. I think it adds a little extra touch. And I love this scarf because it is lightweight, but if you want it to keep you warm, just scrunch it up like this around your neck and it'll keep you warm. If you live in a place where the climate is not quite as cold, then you can spread it out and it makes a nice lacy scarf, cowl, or Mobius Infinity scarf. Lots of options with one pattern, and it's one easy pattern.